Born on the toxic world of Barbarus, Mortarion was shaped by its deadly environment and ruled by necromancer overlords. These tyrants dominated the planet's surface, living high in the poisonous clouds, while the human population struggled in the valleys below, eking out a meager existence. Mortarion, discovered as a child on a battlefield amidst the dead, was taken in by the most powerful of the overlords, Nekare, who saw potential in this strange boy who could survive in the toxic atmosphere. Nekare raised him as his own, training him in the arts of warfare and survival, but always keeping him isolated in the poisonous upper reaches, away from the human population. As Mortarion grew, he developed a hatred for the overlords and their sorcery. He longed to free the humans who lived in fear under their rule, and eventually he escaped Nekare's fortress. Descending into the valleys, he met the people of Barbarus for the first time, pale and gaunt, but still driven by his desire for justice. Despite their initial fear of him, Mortarion proved himself by leading them in battle, training warriors, and crafting rudimentary breathing apparatuses to protect them in the toxic fog. His forces grew stronger, and he led successful campaigns against several of the overlords, driving them back into the highlands. However, his final battle with Nekare eluded him. As Mortarion ascended to the mountains for a final confrontation, the poisonous atmosphere became too much even for him. It was then that the Emperor arrived, slaying Nekare and saving Mortarion from certain death. Though grateful, Mortarion was deeply resentful of the Emperor's intervention, feeling robbed of his vengeance. Nevertheless, he swore loyalty to the Emperor and was given command of the 14th Legion, the Dusk Raiders, who would soon be renamed the Death Guard. Upon his reunion with the 14th Legion, Mortarion reshaped his forces to reflect his own harsh nature. The Death Guard became a legion known for endurance and resilience, characteristics Mortarion believed to be the highest virtues. The legion, already formidable, was pushed further by their Primarch, fighting in the most brutal and toxic environments that would have crippled other forces. Mortarion's greatest success during the Great Crusade came on the planet Ganj IV, where his forces eradicated an alien species through relentless trench warfare, showcasing their ability to endure in the harshest conditions. Mortarion's relationship with his brothers was strained at best. He was closest to Horus, who admired Mortarion's grim determination and tactical brilliance, but distanced himself from those like Magnus the Red, whose reliance on psykers and warp sorcery he despised. Mortarion's past on Barbarus left him with a deep hatred for anything related to the warp, and this was most evident during the Council of Nicaea, where he strongly argued against the use of psykers in the legions. For Mortarion, psykers represented the same corrupting influence as the necromancers of his homeworld, and their use was a betrayal of humanity's purity. His relationship with the Emperor, while initially respectful, began to fray. Mortarion felt the Emperor was too lenient with psykers, allowing them to continue serving in his armies despite the Council's ruling. This perceived hypocrisy gnawed at Mortarion, who believed the Emperor had betrayed the very principles he claimed to uphold. His growing disillusionment was further fueled by the sense that the Emperor did not value the sacrifices made by the Death Guard, who were often sent on the most grueling campaigns, receiving little recognition in return. As the Great Crusade wore on, Mortarion grew increasingly bitter. He saw himself and his legion as the Emperor's unappreciated tools, sent to do the dirtiest work, while other Primarchs received glory. His loyalty to the Emperor began to wane, setting the stage for his eventual fall into rebellion. When Horus revealed his rebellion, Mortarion was torn between his loyalty to his brother and his lingering allegiance to the Emperor. However, Horus knew Mortarion's growing resentment and exploited it. He convinced Mortarion that the Emperor had become a tyrant, using the very warped sorcery that Mortarion despised. Mortarion, already disillusioned and distrustful, joined Horus's cause. During the massacre at Istvaan III, Mortarion coldly purged his legion of those still loyal to the Emperor, sending them to their deaths in the virus bombing of the planet. He saw this as a necessary cleansing, one that mirrored the harsh purges of Barbarus. At Istvaan V, Mortarion's Death Guard play a critical role in the Dropsite massacre, coordinating with the other traitor legions to slaughter the Loyalist forces. His command was methodical and unrelenting, embodying the Death Guard's philosophy of attrition and endurance. As the Horus Heresy progressed, Mortarion grew more entrenched in his role as one of Horus's key lieutenants, committing his legion to the cause of chaos, even as his disdain for the warp persisted. Mortarion's ascension to Daemonhood occurred during the Death Guard's voyage to Terra, when their fleet was caught in the warp and ravaged by the Destroyer Plague. Mortarion, once proud of his legion's endurance, was helpless as his warriors succumbed to a sickness even their legendary resilience could not withstand. In desperation, he offered his soul and his legion to Nurgle, the chaos god of the seas, in exchange for deliverance from the plague's torment. Nurgle accepted, transforming Mortarion into a Daemon Primarch and granting his sons immortality as Plague Marines. This transformation marked Mortarion's final descent into corruption, as he embraced the decay and death that Nurgle represented. Now a demon prince of Nurgle, Mortarion led his corrupted legion during the Siege of Terra, commanding the assault on the western front of the Imperial Palace. His forces spread plague and disease throughout the battlefield, a stark contrast to the more direct assaults led by Primarchs like Angron and Fulgrim. Mortarion's method was slower but insidious, weakening the palace's defenses through attrition. His transformation into a Daemon Primarch made him an even more fearsome force, embodying the power of decay itself as the battle for Terra reached its bloody climax. Mortarion's fate during the Siege of Terra was sealed when he faced Jaghatai Khan in a brutal duel at the Lionsgate spaceport. Though Mortarion's ascension to Daemon Primarch had granted him immense power, the White Scars Primarch exploited Mortarion's pride and fury. In a final act of defiance, the wounded Khan launched a desperate attack, managing to decapitate Mortarion, banishing him to the warp with an explosion of chaotic energy. With Mortarion temporarily removed from the battlefield, the Death Guard continued their plague-ridden assault under the command of Typhus and other senior commanders. Mortarion's absence left a void in the leadership of his legion, but they fought on, determined to carry out their master's will. After the heresy, Mortarion was not destroyed, but was instead banished to the realm of chaos. There, in the timeless hellscape of Nurgle's domain, he re-emerged as a more monstrous version of himself, fully embracing his role as the Prince of Decay. Mortarion shaped his new home, the Plague Planet, in Nurgle's image, a sickening mirror of the tyranny he had fought against on Barbarus. The Death Guard, though scattered, rallied under their reborn master as he led them on campaigns of pestilence across the galaxy, spreading Nurgle's diseases to every corner of the Imperium. While Mortarion's transformation and banishment were a result of his own choices, the seeds of his fall were sown long before the heresy, and in many ways, the Emperor's actions played a part. By concealing the true nature of the warp and relying on psykers, the Emperors alienated Mortarion, whose hatred of sorcery had been forged during his early years under the necromancer overlords of Barbarus. The Emperor's intervention in Mortarion's final battle against Nekari further deepened his resentment, leaving Mortarion feeling robbed of his victory and independence. In Mortarion's mind, the Emperor embodied the hypocrisy and tyranny he had sworn to destroy, pushing him ever closer to Horus and, ultimately, into Nurgle's embrace. His legacy is a tragic tale of betrayal, bitterness, and a fate sealed by the Emperor's inability to truly understand his sons.